welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and we are live on CBS Sports Network to get you up to date on everything that is going on at the Open Championship right now, including a very sweaty cut line. We've got guys charging up the leaderboard and some impressive play in difficult conditions. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Rick. Thrilled to be here covering the Open Championship. And just like we saw yesterday, if you're a fan of the Open Championship in general, you're getting exactly what you hope for. Exactly the reason you may be a fan of the Open Championship, because we're getting really high winds, extremely difficult conditions, thick rough, all the things you think about when you think golf in Scotland have come into fruition this week. It's been a joy to watch.
It has been. Kyle Porter is also here. And KP, this championship elicits a lot of emotions. I feel like you get people who love watching the carnage, who love watching the wave advantage, and then you get those who hate it because it wipes out half the field. This is really a polarizing championship that we get.
It is. Before I address that, I was going to ask you, are there different levels of sweatiness for cut lines? Like, is there like drenched? Is there like barely glistening? Like what are your levels here?
The regular ones, you just have a glow to you, right? That's when all the popular players they've made the cut. It has been the number of the cut line has been decided for hours. It doesn't move, and then you start to get into, okay, I'm gonna need to apply some deodorant, or maybe it's a full stick. It's I'm in a steam room. There are many different levels of it depending on what the number is, how it's moving, and who's on what side of it. For sure.
My favorite version is when a big name player moves the cut with us late. Like Justin Thomas has done this a couple times where he moved the cut late with a bad, like he played poorly coming in and he moved it so that other people got in, but then he missed it, which is, that's happened multiple times. So yeah, this one, there's a lot of big names down there, which is, I guess you might need some deodorant this afternoon. We were texting about this earlier, Rick, with another member of our cabal, and I love this tournament so much. And I think one of the reasons I love it is, there was carnage today, but it never feels manufactured. I think the USGA started to do a better job of this at the US Open, where I think sometimes in the past it can feel a little manufactured, like, oh, you just basically grew trees in the fairway, so of course the hole's difficult, right? Like that hasn't actually happened, but wouldn't have been surprised like 15 years ago. And with this tournament, it just feels authentically difficult, especially when the wind blows. And we haven't seen that in past years, and it doesn't make for as good of a championship. But seeing it this year, I mean, there was a moment, I guess it was when JT started and kind of that afternoon wave, Rory went off, and it was like, this is crazy. Like, this looks insanely difficult. And maybe that affects the tournament too much when somebody like Shane Lowry doesn't necessarily have to play in those conditions. But man, it is very, very fun to watch as a spectator.
It's trying to thread a very small needle, Greg, for most people. And I'm mostly with Kyle. Like, I understand we might get a wave. I don't really care how it plays out. Somebody's going to win the golf tournament, but you'll have some Open Championships and the way that these courses are designed without any wind, and there's just no defense, and guys tear it apart, and you hear the complaints about that. And when Mother Nature does come to play and beats these guys up and eliminates half the field because they got unlucky, you hear the complaints on that side. So we're trying to thread a very small needle here. I don't particularly care. I think we're going to get a great championship one way or another, but that's the uncontrollable nature of this event.
Yeah, and that's what the RNA kind of predicates their championship on. We're, in a way, not trying to thread a needle. You are if you're looking on Twitter all day. In that case, if you're trying to please everybody on Twitter, I don't know if a piece of thread can go through that needle. But when you look at what RNA is trying to set up, they really enjoy the variance, because this is the ultimate outdoor game, and changes in conditions really affect the golf course. And when you're playing seaside golf, not just in Scotland, but all over the world, the defense is typically the wind, and in some cases rain as well, because you don't get trees While you do get thick rough when there's not a lot of wind and rain, sometimes that rough can get really burnt out, and it's very light. So the biggest defense becomes the wind, and we're getting plenty of that in a direction that I think also really has impacted the way this golf course plays, which is fascinating to me. In all of our pre-tournament coverage, I was absolutely talking about how much easier the front nine is than the back nine. The reason for that is you're talking about holes that are under 400 yards. Par fours under 400 yards on the front nine and over 450, over 470 on the back nine. But all of a sudden, those short holes are playing into the wind. And players are coming into those greens with really long clubs, oftentimes from the fescue. And it's giving them absolute fits. And then you turn the corner to the back nine where the wind is now in a more favorable direction. It is off the left, so it's not favorable for a right-handed player, but it's helping at least. But now those are the more difficult holes design-wise. So it's really difficult to come across birdies. The par fives on the front nine have been much more difficult than I expected, and it's led to a very small number of birdies being made.
As of right now, 16 of the 18 holes at Royal Troon are playing over par. But what I like about this, KP, is the holes that we were prepared for have kind of lived up to the hype. I'm speaking of the postage stamp number 8, which is a 120-yard par 3 that should be kind of easy. And here on Friday during the second round, it's got an 18% birdie rate and a 21% bogey or worse rate. So you can get on both sides of that. Number 11, the difficult par 4 that plays alongside the railroad tracks, has given up, that is 45 bogeys or worse, 19 or more doubles. That's over 10% of the field has made double in round 2 or worse on number 11. These were the holes that I was ready to be excited about, and I'm getting exactly what I asked for.
Yeah, 8's awesome. I mean, it's so good because it's kind of emblematic of what I'm discussing, where it's not manufactured. It's like, yeah, dude, it's a 117-yard shot. Just hit it. But then if you're in the bunker, you can't get out. I mean, Joaquin Niemann should be in the final pairing on Sunday, and he made an 8 there. I mean, it's really that hole is awesome. I was just watching guys hit shots into it earlier. The Hatton group, they all found the green, and you're like, oh yeah. I mean, it's 170. My son and I play 117-yard par 3s all the time. The little short course. Like it's really cool because it's so difficult, and I think it's just like this tournament. I think is really exciting because, and I think we talked about this on Thursday a little bit. You can the postage stamp is emblematic of this. You can easily make birdie, hit a 115-yard shot, make a 6-foot putt. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. You can also make a quad, which we've seen today. And it's pretty rare that you get that even at major championships. Sometimes at Augusta, even at US Opens, it's like you don't see like pretty easy quads that often. You might see some doubles, but like the variance in numbers at this golf tournament because of the pot bunkers, because of the wind, I think it's thrilling. I think it's super exciting because, when you're coming down the stretch on Sunday, somebody's going to get to 11. You're like, might make 7 here. Like 7 is in play. And that's just not always the case, especially at PGA Tour events, but even at major championships as well.
When you look at that postage stamp hole, there's an absolute beauty to, as we lost Rick here, but Kyle, to your point, there's an absolute beauty to the way that hole's designed because, like you said, it's 117 yards, and there are a couple of bunkers that are big no-nos, especially the coffin bunker on the left-hand side. And when you have a little fall off on the right-hand side, it says, well, okay, just keep it left of that, but you can't because there's a coffin bunker over there. And you see the wind coming across left to right, and it's like, okay, well, just play plenty of room for the wind, but you can't because there's a coffin bunker on the left-hand side. So a lot of shots that are probably pretty good on a normal day, all of a sudden just get rejected by the wind. They catch a little side slope. I mean, the green's 10 yards wide in that area, and because of the fall off on the right, it only plays 8 yards wide. So it's a very narrow target, and it's difficult in that wind to aim at the one place you can't hit it, which is coffin bunker on the left, and that's where you have to aim. So it just creates, I think, tremendous challenge that leads to that massive variance in score differential. And if you play that hole in even par for the week, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, you are, and it's I saw this on Twitter earlier. It also exposes some guys that can't hit different shots. Like if you don't have a draw there with that left to right wind, then it becomes a lot more difficult for you to hold that green. So we could talk all day, Greg, about the postage stamp, about why we love this golf course, about why we love Open Championships. We're going to try to get Rick back. He has disappeared. He has ghosted us. He's having some technical difficulties, so we're going to hit a break, try to get him back on the flip side, and we will talk to you guys soon. Welcome back to the First Cut podcast. We are still Rickless. Rick Gehman has disappeared the way of Rory McIlroy's game on Thursday and Friday at the Open Championship. We're going to start with a different Irishman, Greg. We're going to start with Shane Lowry, who is at the very top of this leaderboard, 7 under after 36 holes. Leads the entire field other than Justin Rose and Daniel Brown. I don't know what he's going by. I think it's Dan Brown. By 5. He leads those two guys by 2, everybody else by 5. I think we have to start with 11. What were you thinking as you saw, whether it was live or a replay or however you experienced Shane Lowry's 11th hole? What was going through your head as you watched that?
Well, I was watching it live and watching most of Shane Lowry's pretty much all of his round live, and I'm thinking, okay, Shane Lowry has it to 7 under. Heading into this hole, he has more control over his golf ball than anybody else in the morning. He is dominating with his approach play. And on the right-hand side of 11, he's in some fescue, but I'm still thinking he can run something up on the green. And all of a sudden, it's in the gorse bushes. And now this is a total disaster. You're in one of these positions where you got to hit a provisional. But, Kyle, you're still in order to hit a provisional, you got to take a drop in the fescue. So I'm thinking Shane Lowry took a tournament that he has both hands on the steering wheel, and he has just let everybody back in the field.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he swerved right into the oncoming train on those train tracks, right next to the 11, and the whole thing was a total disaster because he found his ball, Rick, or he didn't find his ball. He wasn't looking for his ball. He did not want to find his ball. Somebody else found his ball, and he was not excited about that because if nobody had found it, essentially he gets to play the provisional. He had a putt at bogey. I can't remember how far it was, 20, 30 feet, something like that. It wasn't a great putt, but at least it was a putt at 5. Somebody did find his ball, so under the rules, you have to go and play that one. Well, he couldn't play it because it's in the gorse, so he has to drop 30, 40 yards back, ends up making 6. What did you make of that entire sequence, Rick?
Yeah, it was kind of a lesson in ruling, right? Because he calls it a provisional, because he puts it down and hits a pretty good shot onto the green for his second. He's thinking, don't even look for that. I'm not even going to walk over there. And some good Samaritan, of course, lays eyes on his golf ball, and now he's got to go identify it. And once he identifies it, now he has got to play it. That provisional is no longer in play. So KP, the whole ordeal took about 20 minutes. Matt Fitzpatrick finished the hole. I think he made triple himself, but we were just waiting around trying to figure out what was going on as this thing grinds to a halt.
Well, what if somebody brought this up? It might have been Dan Rappaport on Twitter. I think it was. What if Lowry loses the Open by 1, and you could say he lost the Open because not because somebody couldn't find his ball, because somebody did find his ball, because he didn't have that putt at bogey. It was a very bizarre sequence, but I thought the bigger story there, Rick, was just the bounce back over the next 6 holes. You know, or I guess 7 holes. He excuse me. He talked after his round about how he's like, sometimes you're just in the frame of mind where it's easy to bounce back from things. Like you just move on to the next thing. And he's like, I am in that frame of mind this week. Now, that might be because he's playing so well, but whatever it is, I thought the bounce back, the 2 birdies coming in, was kind of reasserted him as the guy to beat going into this weekend.
Yeah, he posted a 2 under round, which is phenomenal on this day, and gets it to 7 under par. Daniel Brown, who we gave the initiation to most people to last night, Greg, we were wondering how he was going to respond to being the overnight leader at the Open Championship, ranked outside the top 250 in the world. Well, he responded pretty well, and he shot a 1 over 72. Again, when the scoring average is 3.5 over par, Dan Brown will take this every single day, and he's now going to be in that final group on Saturday afternoon.
You know, it looked like a little bit of a shaky start for him. He hit it into the pot bunker at number 3, had to make a 20-footer for par, which was a big save, then made bogey at the par 5 6th hole, and then he really rallied. He started hitting fairways, which was the key to his round on Thursday. His opening round, he only missed 1 fairway, and he had the ball in play, and everything looked easy, and he's keeping it out of all the things that we discussed in the last block. All of that trouble he was avoiding because he had such control over his driver. And it looked like that was going to get away from him, but it didn't. He was able to rebound. He was able to get the ball in play. He was able to make some really significant par saving putts, a couple of longer putts. But all in all, I think Dan Brown really handled himself quite nicely in this second round. And look, this could be another Ben Curtis type story at the U.S. Open, or Todd Hamilton, who actually won here at Royal Troon.
Well, he's not the only Englishman, KP, in at 5 under, and 68 was literally the round of the day. We saw a handful of guys shoot it, but Justin Rose's 68, figuratively the best round of the day, because he did it in the worst end of the draw, and Rosie was flashing some vintage vibes. Just 1 bogey on the card, number 12. He offsets that with a quartet of birdies to shoot this 68. And when he gets in kind of these difficult conditions, he can grind it out with the best of them.
Yeah, he can. I think there's a lot to talk about here. I think you could argue that Justin Rose is the story of this tournament so far. I do think, real quick, on the bad end of the draw, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, because he got through that front 9 before it really started kicking up, or he was at least toward the back part of it. I think some people, like, not everybody can tee off at the same time, right? So somebody like JT, or the guys that are playing now, Homa, Rory, Hatton, they were starting whenever, I guess really Homa, Rory, Hatton were starting as it got really bad. Rose was finishing his front 9, and then he got the back 9 in, like, the back 9 is playing easier than the front. So it was, I don't know that it was like the worst conditions that he could have gotten, but still, nobody else around him in any of those groups is under par. So I thought it was still super impressive. And I think the thing about Rose for this weekend for me, Rick, is he's the type of guy that seems like he should have more than 1 major, but also his window is big time closing. He's 44 years old. He had to qualify in this year. You know, we've been talking about that kind of all week. And I was looking at our CBS Sports research team had some numbers on him. He'd be the 4th oldest Open winner ever, which doesn't seem like it, but again, he's 44 years old, and he would be the oldest since Roberto De Vincenzo in 1967. So it's kind of a lot on the line for Justin Rose this weekend, and it would be very cool to see him qualify in and win his first Open at age 44, just because of his history at this tournament.
That's pretty impressive also, too, because, Greg, I believe the average age of the Open Championship winner is usually the oldest of the 4 majors. So you add that in with him being on the older side of that, and we're in pretty uncharted territory.
We are in uncharted territory. But, that being said, while the winners may not be that old, there have been a lot of experienced players that get themselves in the mix. You think of Tom Watson, when Stuart Sink won back in 2009. Tom Watson, you could argue, should have won that Open Championship. Greg Norman got himself in the mix. I believe that was 2013. And they were significantly older than Justin Rose is now. So I don't think there is any aspect of Justin Rose's age that is prohibiting him this weekend, considering the control that he has over the golf ball. He still has enough length. It's not like on a link style golf course like this, Justin Rose is giving much up to some of the star players or younger players like Shane Lowry. So he has what it takes, and the ability that he's shown so far to grind and save par and put the ball in play. But when he doesn't put the ball in play, figure out a way to write down a good score. He has made some mistakes, but he has not compounded them at all. And more often than not, he's saved par. And only one bogey on the week through these two opening rounds is just incredibly impressive.
Yeah, Billy Horschel, Jason Day, Patrick Cantlay, Gary Woodland, Jorge Campillo, and Justin Rose with the 68th rounds of the day. KP, just quickly here, because he went out in the morning wave, Tiger Woods will miss the cut. That is not a surprise after the way he opened up, but he followed it up with a 6-over round. He's 14 over. He is in a tie for 141st. When's the next time we see Tiger play golf?
I think he said the Hero.
Ooh. So that's December?
December, yeah. He said he's not going to play until then. I mean,
so we did not get the once a month this year that we were promised.
No. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. Like he's just my take now is the same as it was yesterday, which is I don't need you to retire. We just need to go into these majors with a different expectation or view, including Tigers. I mean, the Tiger doesn't need to say like, "Oh, I'm here to win." Like, I don't think you are. Like, I think you're. I don't doubt that you love to compete, and I respect that, and I think you should continue competing as long as you can. But the "I'm here to win" stuff, we need to all kind of take a step back from that, I think.
How about we take a step back and look at the guys who are actually here to win out on the golf course right now or playing in that afternoon wave. We'll get you up to date with what the up-to-date cut line is and look ahead towards the weekend. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network, and we've got cut line movement at the Open. It is now 6 over par is the number that it'll take to get you into the weekend at Royal Troon, and it looks like it's going to stay there. We don't think there's any more movement of this cut line. Greg, we'll dive into a lot of these names. So we're just looking through the guys who are in at 6 under right now. Sungjae Im finds the weekend. Abraham Answer finds the weekend. Ricky Fowler, Aaron Rai, Adam Scott, amongst others who are going to be around for the final 2 rounds.
Yeah, and some very popular names if you're playing DFS, perhaps even one and done this week. So it was really important for those guys to get in. The one that really jumps out and catches my eye, Rick, is Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler started this tournament in round 1, 6 over par through 6. He shot 8 over 79, battles back this morning with a 2 under par round of 69 to get to 6 over and play the weekend. Just, it highlights the importance of staying patient in these major championships. There are so many players that have gotten off to just awful starts at some point during this tournament. And if you stay with it and you stay patient, oftentimes that cut comes right back to you, and that's what we saw today.
Yeah, 36 holes is simultaneously not a lot, but also plenty if you're trying to make it to the weekend. Speaking of popularity, KP, Tommy Fleetwood was one of the more popular fantasy selections, one of the more popular one-and-done selections. He was on a lot of different wagering cards for this week, and barring some type of miracle over his final 2 holes, he's not going to be around for the weekend. He's got 2 holes left to go, 17 and 18. He needs to birdie them both. I will tell you, that's probably unlikely. It's possible. 18 is one of the 2 holes playing under par today, but Tommy Ladd needs some magic, and he needs it right now.
Yeah, he does. What's weird about this, Rick, is this set up perfectly for him. Not only is he great at opens, but he is a great weather wind type player as well. He hits up that flighted low shot, and he just hasn't had it this week. Looking back at last week, the Scottish Open, it was a little bit, I guess, of a tell. Like he wasn't super sharp there either. And it's been interesting. He doesn't have a top 10 since the Masters, but everything's been pretty good. But pretty good, obviously, doesn't get the job done this week. So yeah, he was one of the guys that I had. I think one of my matchups was him over Rahm, which not looking great right now. I do want to call out another guy that looks like he's going to squeeze inside the cut. Bobby Mack. He was 8 over through 4 holes today. And he's fought back. He's made 4 birdies since then and is just inside the cut line. So he's got a couple holes left. We'll see if he can hang on. But man, I did not think he was going to be able to battle back and make it.
Yeah, Bobby Mack went out in 43, which was not to be outdone by Justin Thomas, who went out in 45. Greg. And I the last time he shot 45 on 9, he was probably 12 years old. He did it at the Open Championship here today. However, thanks to a decent back 9 that he played at 2 under par and getting off to that great start yesterday, he will be around for the weekend. He's in a tie for 38th. He has 4 over par for the championship. But this is a carbon copy of what we saw at the Scottish Open. Get off to a great start, get everybody all hot and bothered, and then kind of lay an egg.
10-shot difference between his first round and his second round, albeit very different conditions. This second round was just extremely difficult. And I think this scorecard is really interesting when you look at it. All those squares and double squares on the front side and a couple birdies sprinkled in on the back. Look, this is what we spoke about last night and what we spoke about pre-tournament. The concern in a tournament like this for JT is errancy off the tee. And you see him hit a huge hook at number 1. He misses way left at number 2. He misses left at number 3. It was the entire front 9 was all left misses. And then all of a sudden, when he makes the turn and the wind switches and he's downwind now, you see him get the ball in play. And they're not these wild left and right shots that we saw on the front 9. That just speaks to the difficulty of playing into the wind. You have to be so much more precise. You have to have so much more control than you do even if there's no wind or if it's downwind or moderate wind. But to have control over your golf ball left to right, it's a really underrated thing when you're playing into the wind. It doesn't just affect distance. It affects direction too, and it affected Justin Thomas big time on that front 9.
Yeah, real quick, Rick. Here's a stat: the morning wave, the front 9 played 0.8 strokes over, and the afternoon was 3.03. That's a little bit what I'm talking about with the Justin Rose thing, where he caught, I think, maybe some of the wind, but not the way that like JT did on Friday.
Yeah, there were a couple of triples early on the front 9 in that afternoon wave. One of them, KP, belonged to Rory McIlroy, who made a triple on the par 5 fourth. He turned in 42. He is limping to the finish line right now. He's got 3 holes to go, 4 holes to go, and he's got just one birdie on the card. He is not going to make the cut this week. And if you were watching what he did, Thursday's round, yesterday's round was not good. It wasn't horrible, but he clearly didn't have his best stuff, and he wasn't able to stop a lot of the sideways play. This round that he's in right now is maybe the worst round of golf I've seen from Rory McIlroy in quite some time. Some massive misses from 90 yards in the fairway. He's missing 30 yards. It was bad.
It was so bad. The miss on you're talking about number 6 there, the par 5. By the way, I just looked it up. Justin Thomas and Justin Rose teed off in back-to-back groups. So I think I was thinking more of this group than the JT group. They caught the worst of the wind. But even still, like the shot that Rory hit on 6 there, it honestly might be the worst shot I've ever seen of like a superstar hit. It was, I mean, it looked like something like I would do. It was such a weird, like, he like turned it over and it was just, I mean, it was 35 yards over the green.
It was like the first time I thought I could ever hit a draw. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I got this. I can do this. And then I just smother hook one, 35
Yeah.
yards left over the green from a perfect lie in the. I just like that's in my range of outcomes. It should not be in Rory's.
Is Rory a bad wind player?
No. He won the Scottish Open last year, playing great in the wind.
Good point.
But Kyle, I think you said it yesterday perfectly. He wasn't hitting it his best. Right? That was very clear in the opening round. And all of a sudden you come out in this wind, you're not hitting it your best, and it is just so penalizing. It's penalizing for McIntyre, who won last week, penalizing for Justin Thomas, who's one of the best players in the world, penalizing for Rory McIlroy, because you're just a little bit off. And that's why you see the bizarre shots that Rory hit. Then you compound that. Well, now we're going to try to hit the ball really low. So we're going to try to manufacture shots that are maybe we're not quite ready for because we're not on our A game. We're hitting shots that we normally wouldn't hit. The go-to safety shot just isn't there. And you're exposed. There is no place to hide. So, it's frustrating for all of these guys, but and they certainly haven't played their best, but it's not as bad as their game is not in as bad a shape as it looks.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and getting exposed is, there is no place to hide out there. Well, from the bad to the good, Jon Rahm about to wrap up his second round, and he is showing signs of life. This is some of the best golf we've seen from Jon Rahm all year long here, KP. He's got a little bit of swag now. He made the turn in even par after discussing the fact that of how difficult that side has been for guys in this wave. Then he makes back-to-back birdies on 14 and 15 before giving one up at 16. So 2 holes to go. Rahm has moved himself up into the top 15 on the leaderboard. This is good vibes. We've been waiting 7 months to see this.
Yeah, that front 9 score right there, it doesn't look like it on paper. That's an insane score because I think when he teed off, I bet it was playing 41 average. I bet it was playing 5 over. It's ending at 3 over for the afternoon wave, but he got the worst of it, and to go out in 36 on that front is truly crazy. I mean, he ran one in on 9 that was a little bit of luck, but he played awesome. And I didn't see this coming. I did not see Jon Rahm being, somewhat in contention going into this weekend. So it's a good, he's been bad at the other 3 majors. His best finish is a T46 at the Masters. Missed the cut of the PGA, missed the U.S. Open, had to withdraw with that that weird foot toe thing that he had going on. But he ends the major season with presumably, depending on how this weekend goes, with a much better space, I think, than he started it, and mostly that he played it throughout the year. So I think definitely encouraging from Rahm so far.
Yeah, Greg, quickly here on Jon Rahm. He's got 36 more to go, and he's probably going to get a better weather draw because of the way the tee times are going to work. You optimistic and buying him in the last 2 rounds?
I'm optimistic. Like Kyle said, we didn't really see this coming. I did take a chance and play him in one and done this week, but that wasn't really a prediction of success. It was more like a probability play. I got to play a live guy. I've played Bryson. I've played Brooks. I've played Cam Smith. Can I really leave Jon Rahm out for the whole year? That was more of my mindset. So I'm not looking into the crystal ball here. But what has been so impressive, specifically in the second round from Jon Rahm, and in the opening round as well, this is as frustrating as it gets. I mean, you see guys just infuriated. And there is nobody that gets more upset on the golf course than Jon Rahm visibly. And he's been somewhat calm. He's been somewhat cool. He's understanding. He stayed extremely patient. And all of a sudden, without making very many birdies, just kind of hanging in there, grinding out pars, all of a sudden he finds himself inside the top 20. He did get up and down from a bunker on 17. So he goes to the 18th hole. Birdie would get him back to even par. That would be a huge move in the afternoon for Jon Rahm today.
Yeah, well, we've got big names who will not be around for the weekend. We've got big names on the first page and a half of the leaderboard. We've got a lot more to cover, and we're going to continue this conversation after a quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. And gentlemen, I want to get to the top of the board because it's starting to solidify. But real quick, now that we've got a cut number, very likely 6 over par, we've got a number of players in the clubhouse. Here are some notables that are not going to be around for the weekend in all likelihood: Wyndham Clark, Bryson DeChambeau, Tony Finau, Victor Hovland, Will Zalatoris. Tony Finau made birdie on his last hole to shoot an 81. That's not great. Any of those names stand out to you for any level of concern, KP?
Concern for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
I think one that stands out is Wyndham. His major record it's bad. And the year since the Players really has not been very good. This is not good. That's a double, 2 doubles and a triple to go with 4 bogeys. That's tough. It was interesting. They put up the NBC put up the or whatever, USA put up the US Olympic team, and it was like Scotty and Xander and Morikawa. They're all in the top 15, and Wyndham Clark T148, and he's 16 over, or T147, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what Wyndham Clark is in terms of like career arc. Is he going to be he doesn't have a top 10 at a major other than his US Open win. And I think that's really interesting and something to kind of keep an eye on going forward with him.
I saw you, Greg, shaking your head as I was reading off Tony Finau's 81 from even par to 10 over, and someone who we both thought was ready. This was it. This was finally the moment. We did not get the moment.
Yeah, and we saw so much of it throughout this week, but this is a triple and a quad. Right? It's not like the Wyndham Clark scorecard or a Tiger Woods scorecard or Justin Thomas's front 9 where it's just bogey after bogey after bogey. This is largely pretty good golf and then massive mistakes. And all of a sudden you go from a guy that's in contention that I was thinking could make a move and get himself in position to win this tournament. We talked about it last night. It's like, hey, look, Tony Finau at even par, I think is heading in a positive direction. Makes a triple and a quad today, and all of a sudden he's slamming the trunk, getting back on the plane and heading back across the pond. It happens so quickly in the blink of an eye. So I wouldn't say that it's a long-term concern with Tony Finau. I was just amazed at how quickly and abruptly he went from contention to miscut.
The top of the board we talked about: Shane Lowry 7 under, Daniel Brown, Justin Rose at 5 under. But just behind that is a group of golfers with a ton of pedigree. Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, all inside the top 15 right now. And KP, let's start with Patrick Cantlay, who shot one of those 3 under 68s. Just a bogey on the par 4 13th. That is it for Cantlay. Talk about a guy whose major championship performances are probably a little underwhelming considering his stature in the game. And of course, Xander Schauffele, one of his good friends, goes out and gets his first major championship victory at the PGA. Cantlay still looking for his.
Yeah, this is impressive. Rory, by the way, just hit himself with his club. He threw his club up in the air on 16 and hit himself on the way up on accident. It was pretty humorous. This is impressive. I did not see this coming from Cantlay. He hasn't been a great major player over the course of his career. He did seem to have a little bit of a breakthrough at Pinehurst. Played very well there. Obviously, could have won that tournament. Honestly, at the end. But he's a hard guy to figure out, because if you just looked in a vacuum, you would say, yeah, this is great conditions for Patrick Cantlay, and yet if you look at his major career, you would say, well, this might not go well for Patrick Cantlay, but it did on Friday. So I don't totally know what to expect from him on the weekend. Do I think he's going to win? Probably not, but it has been to me, it's been a really impressive 6-round stretch from him at the majors since the start, really, of the U.S. Open.
The number one player in the world, Greg, Scotty Scheffler, shot another 1-under round of 70. That's opening this championship, 70-70. He's in a tie for fourth. He's 5 shots off the lead. We are seeing numbers go quickly in both directions here, and Scheffler is positioning himself perfectly at the midway point.
Yeah, he definitely has an understanding of how to pace himself, how to get himself in position, and this looks like a setup where he's kind of going to go on a run over the weekend. Now, the round 1 and round 2, even though they were the exact same score, were very different. In round 1, he hit the ball great and didn't get anything out of it. In round 2, he didn't hit the ball nearly as well and got a lot out of it. Made some really critical up and downs, a huge up and down at number 17. I believe he got up and down from about 70 yards on number 15 to save par. He drove it into the native area, drove it into a pop bunker on 18. He made some ball striking mistakes during this round, but did a wonderful job of saving it with great short game and putting. If we could just put these 2 rounds together, put round 1 and round 2 together, maybe we get that tomorrow. If we do, I think you're looking at something in the high to mid 60s for Scotty Scheffler tomorrow.
Round 2 of the Open Championship is wrapping up, but we still have work to do. I want to look at the live odds and get you ready for the weekend. We're going to do that after a quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. We are just at the halfway point of the Open Championship, and it's Shane Lowry, gentlemen, who is now the favorite to win 2-1. Scotty Scheffler a little bit longer at plus 330. Justin Rose and Xander Schauffele lurking behind at 650 and 9-1. And then if you want a little bit of value, KP, you can get Patrick Cantlay. He's around 18-1. Daniel Brown, if you have any trust in him, at 25. And everybody else is 30-1 or longer. You see anything on this board that you're interested in?
I kind of like Rosie at plus 650. I think that's interesting. I kind of like Xander. Xander's what is he at? 2 under or 1 under?
1 under.
1 under. Yeah, I kind of like. Although if you can get Xander at 10, you might as well get Cantlay at 18, right? Because they're both 1 under. So any of those guys beyond, I think Scheffler's going to win, but any of those guys beyond the first 2, I kind of like.
What'd you see there, Greg?
Well, I love Scheffler. I know you're not gaining much on that. If I was going to take a chance, it would probably be Cantlay. Maybe Dan Brown. Let's have a little fun. It's the Open Championship. Why not?
I'm not ready to have that much fun. Cantlay does seem good at 18-1. But we are going to have plenty of fun over the final 36 holes to find out who our champion golfer of the year is. And we will have you covered on the First Cut Podcast after every single round. Big thanks to Kyle Porter and Greg DuCharme for joining me today. And a reminder that you can find us on YouTube. That's right. We do it on video, the Golf on CBS YouTube channel. Plus, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you listen to your pods. Just find the First Cut Golf Podcast.